So the Canon FTB QL was released in 1971. It is a vintage film camera, and it is this camera right here. This is a fully manual, fully mechanical, 50-year-old camera. So recently I just got into shooting film, and I have realized how fun it is. I've realized how expensive it is, but I love it. And this being the first Canon and this being the first film camera that I've had, I want to give you my thoughts on it and some of the advantages, some of the disadvantages of this camera, and the different things that it can do. So, like I said, this is a fully mechanical camera, so it means there is no battery in this whole operation, although there is actually a battery over here, just a little battery for the light meter, but the light meters are old and kind of unreliable, so I don't really use that at all. Effectively, no battery. So I'm not going to go deeply into how this camera works. There are other videos showing you how this camera works if you need to know more like the ins and outs of the different things on it that it does. But I will go into it a little bit. This right here on the back. So this is what the camera looks like from the back. This right here is how we load the film, is how we load a shutter. So we just move that lever like that. That pulls the film across and pull it up. Focus. It is tricky to focus. Bam, snap the shot. Do it again. Super, super fun. The shutter speed dial is up here on the top, kind of like we would see camera dials today, but it is actually for the shutter speed. And then the shutter button right here, and then the shutter button also locks. So, and then this back, of course, opens up. I have a roll in there right now, so I can't open it up to show you. But that opens up. That's where the film goes in. This thing is an absolute unit. It weighs like, I don't know actually how much it weighs, but it definitely is a chunk for its size. I mean, lighter than like a DSLR, but it's pretty heavy. It also feels a little bit awkward to hold because like we're used to these DSLRs that have like nice shaped handles. This, you know, is just pretty much flat. It feels kind of weird to hold. It feels a little bit awkward and clumsy, but that does not stop you from, you know, actually taking good photos. And that brings me to the actual photos out of this camera and how they look, because that's ultimately what matters when you're talking about a camera, is how the photos look. That's what matters the most. So I've been taking this thing around just different places. I just took it out in town, took some snapshots around town, took it to a birthday party, took some sweet shots there, and I was actually really psyched on the results. There is this really, really cool vintage grain that you get with these old cameras. It looks awesome. They have kind of a like dreamy, silky look to them, and I absolutely love that look. Something I did notice is that it does just a little bit of shutter clipping along the end, like that little black line you see over on the left side. So I mean, it's very easy to crop that out, so it's not a big deal at all, but I did notice that maybe like once or twice a roll, it'll do like a little bit of shutter clipping, but again, nothing major. So yeah, the images coming out of this thing are absolutely awesome. I love them. Maybe a little bit more grain than I would like, but yeah, just a really, really cool look with these photos. You get like this really retro looking photo with just like recent photos. It's really cool, so you can take a picture now and look like it was taken in the 70s. I've had so much fun and absolutely love how the photos come out. If you are just buying a film camera for the very first time and maybe don't know a lot about cameras or a lot about the world, and you're feeling, you know, maybe a little bit more new to the game, I would probably recommend going with an automatic film camera, maybe like a Minolta, something like that, something a little newer than this, because being fully manual, it takes a lot more work to have to use like a light meter and then actually adjust all your settings correctly each time. It does take a significant amount more time than it does if you just use a automatic camera. But there is something kind of special about changing all the settings yourself and, you know, being able to adjust that in that way and, you know, having control over all that stuff too. So it's kind of an upside, but it's also kind of a downside too. I do have one kind of major complaint about this camera, and it's kind of like just very practical. So basically, you do have to worry about this little cap that's screwed in right above the little knob that you pull over. I don't even know what that's called, to move the film. That knob screws loose, and then that cap unscrews itself, and your camera just starts falling apart, and it is very concerning. So you have to make sure that stays tight. There are not a lot of threads there, so it unscrews pretty easily. So you have to make sure that stays on. There's some little washers and stuff inside. You really don't want to like lose all that right as you're about to get awesome photos. So just make sure you keep that tight on there. And this camera is actually really cheap. I bought this camera body for like $50 on eBay, and it was a tested one, so it was one that for sure worked. Make sure you get a tested one. Don't recommend getting a non-tested one. It's a risk that you don't really need to take. But yeah, and then the lens is going to run you like $30 or something. I use a 50mm. It's honestly, the camera is really cheap. It's just, you got to keep buying film. Expect 50 to 75 cents a photo. with after development. So it's something like that. Use MPix to develop your photos. Just quick tip: use MPix. Super quick return. You'll get your photos back in like 3 days. So use MPix. But with all of that said, I love this camera. It is so fun to use. It looks super cool, cool retro look, awesome photos again. So just yeah, fully recommend this camera to anyone who is looking to delve into the world of film, unless you want to use a automatic, which if you're new to the game like I was, it's a little aggressive to use a manual, but I do and I love it. So it's totally up to you. If you want to go for it, absolutely go for it. It's not hard to learn. So with all of that said, buy this camera. It's super awesome. I really do recommend it. Thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you all next week.